Welcome to Watches with Dennis, and today I'm reviewing the Omega Seamaster Diver 300M Co-Axial Master Chronometer 42mm, reference number 210.30.42.20.06.001. This watch is from my personal collection. It was purchased new, and I've owned it for a week at this point. The Omega Seamaster actually dates back to 1948, but the Diver 300M launched in 1993. This version reflects the 2018 update done as part of the Seamaster's 70th anniversary. And so with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and let's take some measurements. The watch diameter, I'm getting 42.1, and as 42mm in the name would suggest, that's accurate. Lug to lug, getting about 49.5. So that's the lug to lug. Let's do the thickness. I'm getting 13.8 millimeters thick. And lug width, a little tricky with the bracelet. So should be 20 millimeters, so 20.1. So those are the measures on that. This watch does offer 300 meters of water resistance. This reference features a gray dial color. The dial is ceramic and rhodium plated with a sunburst effect, and that's how they achieve the gray color and how it plays with the light, as you can see here. The famed wave pattern in the dial that Omega is known for with a number of their 300M watches is laser cut into the dial itself. You can see the hands are blued. There is a lollipop format for the seconds hand, and the hour and minute hands are skeletonized. All three of the hands do feature superluminova. The hour indices are applied and again filled with superluminova. There is a color match date window at the 6 o'clock position. In terms of the text on the dial, as you can see, beneath the 12 o'clock index is the Omega symbol, followed by the word Omega, followed by Seamaster in a script font, followed by the word professional. Then if we drop beneath the center of the watch dial, you can see the ZrO2, that's the chemical composition for the ceramic of the dial, that's zirconium oxide. Below that is the notation that this is a coaxial movement, followed by that it's a master chronometer, followed by the depth rating, the 300-meter depth rating of the watch. All the way down beneath the 6 o'clock index, you can see flanking at the edge of the chapter ring is the standard Swiss made, given that that's where the watch was made. As I stated earlier, this watch is lumed with superluminova. All of the lume glows blue except for the pip in the bezel and the minute hand, and those glow green. Here's some footage of the lume in action. The watch case itself is stainless steel, and the dial is protected by a sapphire crystal. The bevels on the watch are polished, but you can see there are vast segments of the case itself that are satin brushed. At the 10 o'clock position is the helium escape valve. This has long been a staple of the 300M watches, yet for most people it's a completely pointless addition. It's not a feature anyone, I believe, other than a saturation diver might use. The way it functions is on saturation dives, if this helium escape valve is unscrewed, it will allow the helium to escape from the watch. Can be difficult to see on the camera, but kind of making it out, there is a red ring that shows if the helium escape valve is unscrewed to give you a visual indicator, besides it just being out more, that it actually is unscrewed so you can remember to screw it back down. The bezel of this watch has scalloped edges rather than what I think of as the traditional coin edge for the bezel, and personally I find this harder to grip when it comes to trying to turn the bezel, especially when it's on wrist, because my fingers have a tendency to slip. However, the unidirectional bezel does have a really good sound and itself turns easily once you get a grip on it. And also, I have no backplay on this bezel. The bezel insert itself is made out of ceramic, but the diving scale that's on this is a white enamel. And you can see there is the superluminova pip at the 12 o'clock position where I currently have the bezel resting. Back to the case itself, at the 3 o'clock position is the crown. You can see the Omega symbol is on it. And this watch actually features 4 positions. So we're currently in position 0, and that is when the watch crown is screwed down, which provides us our maximum water resistance. Should we unscrew the crown, it'll pop out into position 1. This is where the watch can actually be hand wound if you need to give it any energy. You pull this out again, the watch is now in the date set mode. That's position 2, where when the watch crown is turned, you can see at the 6 o'clock position, the date is hopping. So that's the quick set date. And then in position 3, the watch does feature hacking, so you see the seconds hand is no longer moving, and we are able to manually set the time. The watch bracelet is a very rectangular sort of format rather than having rounded links. You can see there is a mix of both polished and satin brushing. The links are secured via screws. This actually uses a dual screw system where there's a screw on each end of the link. They're very short screws, and there's a pin in between them. That is not a format I'm personally a fan of. Some Grand Seiko bracelets, at least some of them, do use that format as well, if maybe you're familiar with those. The bracelet itself is very solid. You can see some of my desk diving marks already showing up on this watch because I do actually wear these. The watch does feature a diving extension that can pop out like so to give you another added benefit of length. But in addition, I think far more interesting is the micro adjust. You can see this push symbol here, and if you hold this down, you can actually slide the watch out. Let me put the dive extension back in. And so this is a nice, easy on-the-fly micro adjust. It comes quite in handy if your wrist starts to swell up, which mine does if I go around, say, exercising while wearing this watch. Flipping the watch over, you can see there is another sapphire crystal which reveals the movement. This watch is powered by the caliber 8800. This is an automatic movement that uses a coaxial escapement, which is an interesting piece of technology that I won't go into detail here about, but the key takeaway is it reduces wear on the escapement. The movement has 35 joules, it beats at 3.5 hertz, and it offers approximately 55 hours of power reserve. As the dial noted, this watch is a master chronometer, and it is certified by Metis. You can actually look up the specific Metis results for each watch. So if you buy one of these, you'll be given a number, and you can go and download the certificate about how your specific watch did. Metis certification means a lot of things, including resistance of up to 15,000 Gauss magnetic fields, a 0 to plus 5 seconds per day accuracy, and they also do some other tests. Metis is a more rigorous standard than COSC, which is often the standard we hear discussed on chronometer grade watches. Pulling up my specific Metis report, my watch rated 1.2 seconds per day out of the 0 to plus 5 standard on deviation of daily chronometric precision after exposure to 15,000 Gauss. It rated plus 1.6 seconds per day out of a 0 to plus 6 standard on average daily chronometric precision. It rated plus 5.8 seconds per day out of a 0 to plus 14 standard on deviation of chronometric precision in 6 positions, and it rated plus 0.1 seconds per day out of a 0 to plus 10 seconds standard on deviation of chronometric precision between 100% and 33% of power reserve. Here is a look at the watch on my 6.75-inch wrist. I also took some video of this in natural lighting conditions so you could get another look. So let's go ahead and drop that footage in here now. So, what are my overall thoughts on this watch? I'd say the main positives are it's quite accurate. There's a high degree of comfort for such a heavy watch. It's great looking and has an easy to read dial, and it has excellent lume. And I have two notable negatives. One is, as I said earlier in the review, the bezel is harder to turn than I would like, and also the bracelet does not taper. So this watch retails on bracelet for $5,400 US, but practically speaking, it can be found unworn for closer to $4,000 at the time of this recording. Overall, I don't think there's a lot to criticize about this watch. If you're looking at luxury dive watches, there's not many that I can think of that really pack as much in for the price point as Omega is currently doing. You get a serious depth rating. You get an interesting in-house movement with that coaxial escapement technology. You have a highly legible timepiece, and all of it is very packaged in an Omega way, so to speak. No other watch really looks like this unless they're trying to copy Omega. My biggest criticisms are I find the bezel is harder to turn than I would like. As I noted, it's the scalloped edge style, which is a very Omega 300M look, but it's hard for my fingers to get a solid grip on it, and so I slip a lot. If I do have a good grip, the bezel turns great. And this is the first watch that I've had where I didn't feel any back play in the bezel. But overall, I would still rate the Tudor Black Base bezel as the bezel I have had the best overall experience with in terms of ease of grip, the clicking sensation, and the sound it makes. That second criticism I listed earlier is about the bracelet, and I do think the bracelet is comfortable, especially thanks to that sliding micro adjust. But the decision not to taper the bracelet, I think, adds a little bit to why I don't find it quite as comfortable as some other steel bracelets I have, nor is it, in my opinion, as attractive as a tapered bracelet. So, it's good, but it could be better. Overall, if we were talking about luxury brands and luxury watches, Rolex, I would say, does win the bracelet game, I think fairly handily, even with this very convenient micro adjust. All that said, though, this 20mm lug width means you can easily find alternative strap options and throw it on the watch. So those are really my only notable negatives. One of the things you can see here is the design language of the Seamaster 300M is very unique. And so there are aspects that are just flat out polarizing. And as a potential owner, you need to go and decide whether or not you can get past those. I'd say the main ones I am aware of that I didn't point out as flat out negatives are some people find the laser cut wave pattern in the dial off-putting and or just flat out ugly. And others cannot really get past the inclusion of that helium escape valve at the 10 o'clock position. I'd say both of these things are items that very much just scream Omega when you look at the watch, but for many people, they're just a bridge too far. So if you are unsure yourself about those aspects and this video hasn't swayed you one way or another, I would recommend either going online and looking at a lot more photos, or if possible, going to a dealer and actually handling some of these watches in person. For me, what ended up happening is I liked the wave pattern, and so that was part of why I wanted this watch. And the helium escape valve was not something I liked, but it was something I could live with. Anyway, thank you everyone for watching this review video. If you enjoyed the video, please do give it a like as it helps the channel out. Subscribe if you'd like to be automatically notified when I release new videos. Thank you for watching and have a great day.